So we just wrapped up week 3 of the first season of the UFL, and from what we've seen so far, I wanted to talk about why the league is so good for the NFL. Of course, we only have a small sample size of the league, and we're still kind of in the honeymoon stage of it. With the UFL being a combination of the USFL and the XFL though, we're basically in the third season of professional spring football. So we kind of have a decent grasp on what this is or can be. Before I get into it though, make sure you leave a like on the video and let me know how you feel about the UFL so far. If you do enjoy the video or any other content that I make, maybe give me a sub. If you do, you won't regret it. Hopefully. Now, let's look at why the UFL is good for the NFL. So with the UFL being a professional league, the rosters are going to be made up of a few things, including former college athletes, former NFL players, and in some cases, former CFL players. And what some people will probably think when they see this is not good enough for the NFL. And while that may or may not be true, I'd like to add one word to that. Yet. Maybe it won't apply to every player, but there are some cases where spring league players have made it to the big leagues and found some success. Two examples of this are current Dallas Cowboys players Brandon Aubrey and Kevontae Turpin. Aubrey, who came from the Birmingham Stallions after originally playing professional soccer, was named to the 2023 First Team All-Pro roster as a kicker. Turpin, who was also from the USFL, this time from the New Jersey Generals, signed with Dallas after his 2022 USFL MVP season, where he would go on to be voted to the 2022 NFL Pro Bowl as a return specialist. Over 60 players from the 2023 XFL season signed a contract with NFL teams, and the USFL has put out over 80 as well. A majority of them wouldn't be able to keep their spots, but it is a motivating sign for current and future UFL players. There's clearly potential for success with Spring League signees, and this is something that can continue if the league is to stay intact. And while this is all going on, one of the owners, The Rock, has a simple message of what the league is aiming to do, and that is his Player 54 initiative. The biggest push he's made is using the league to extend the dreams of these players to eventually land themselves a spot in the NFL. Not to compete with the NFL, but to add talent and get their players to the biggest football league in the world. High-level NCAA athletes and former professional players are all chasing the same goal. Iron sharpens iron, making the competition beneficial to all parties. And not only do you have to look at the past leagues and its past players, but you could see a perfect example in the UFL right now. The Michigan Panthers kicker, Jake Bates, is surely on NFL radars after he nailed a 64-yard field goal in Week 1, a 62-yarder in Week 2, and a 55-yarder in Week 3. Expect to see Jake Bates on an NFL roster come next season. I also want to acknowledge the coaches as well. I haven't figured out if any coaches have transitioned from the Spring League football to the NFL, but I'd say that the same applies to the coaching staff. This league can be a good developmental or starting spot. As we know, the NFL has been consistently making rule changes, and the UFL has its own unique set of rules. The most significant one being the difference in extra point attempts. Rather than kicking an extra point or going for 2, teams choose to go for either 1, 2, or 3 extra points from different yardage distances. And this could be another rule we see the NFL adopt. I mean, we've already seen them change their kickoff rules and kick return rules that came from the ideas of NCAA or the XFL. The UFL can be the guinea pig for the NFL when it comes to rules. See if some rules work better than others, and compare and contrast types of rules. For example, look at the amount of lower body injuries caused by the hip drop tackle and without the bands. Of course, relative to the league sizes, but this can still be a process that they can work on. All right, so this one may be a bit of a reach, but if you take a look at some of the average attendances of the UFL or XFL games, you'll see that the St. Louis Battlehawks pack their stadium every game. They just broke their own record for home attendance with over 40,000 people. They play in the former home of the St. Louis Rams, which is the Dome. The St. Louis market is obviously passionate, and they've shown that by putting up attendance numbers that really aren't too far off from a former NFL franchise. And I know it's not that simple, but could you imagine the turnout if St. Louis was rewarded an NFL expansion franchise after their support for the Battlehawks? When you've got 40,000 people showing up for a spring league football team, I can only imagine what an actual NFL team could do. But aside from St. Louis, there is no other team that's even remotely close to them in this category. So as far as market exploration, it may not be very common, but there could be diamonds in the rough somewhere if the UFL is to expand and check out new markets on their own. Apparently, there were some trademarks filed for the UFL and some future potential teams where we could see the league expand into Canton and Nashville. Those aren't necessarily untouched markets because we've seen the Titans are already in Nashville for the NFL, and the NFL also already has 2 Ohio teams, but it is still something to keep an eye on. But if we are to see more fan bases show out like the St. Louis Battlehawks games, we could see potential for expansion or market exploration. So those are my main reasons on why the United Football League is good for the NFL. There are some smaller ones like player recognition jumping from league to league, the league filling in the dead space between the NFL seasons, or potential growth toward a working relationship, but the ones I focused on had the most to dive into. But if you did enjoy this video, again, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe if you want more content similar to this. But that's all I have for you today. So until the next video, see ya.